Oh, would you look at this?
Yeah, well.
Would you look at that?
Over 10 years of rain, freezing weather, and ice melt have taken its toll on our entrance. So in this video, we're going to go through the process of fixing this and stop the damage before it gets any worse by filling the cracks, strengthening the concrete, and then sealing it. Now, to fill the cracks, I ended up going with this product from Akona. This is their concrete repair product. A lot of the different products that are available, you actually have to notch out the concrete with a chisel before you can apply their product to seal the crack up. Obviously, I didn't want to go down that road if I didn't have to, and this product doesn't have that requirement. Before applying the filler, you need to make sure to clean out any dirt and debris, so I used a wire brush to clean out the cracks. Also, if you have any loose pieces of concrete, you should go ahead and remove these as well, rather than risk them coming off later. As for applying the filler, it's a pretty straightforward and similar process for all the different manufacturers. Basically, you just need to use a caulk gun and then take your time as you're applying the filler to the cracks. Once it's applied, you can use a scraper or a putty knife to even it out and force it into the cracks. Now, I want to point out that I'm forcing the filler into the cracks with my bare fingers, which isn't what the manufacturer calls for. In fact, it says to not get it on your skin. This is a great reminder to always thoroughly read the manufacturer's instructions before you get started on a project. Once all the cracks were filled, I moved on to preparing the surface of the concrete by cleaning it and removing an old paint stain. I was able to use a wire brush and some water to remove the paint stain pretty easily, and if this hadn't worked, there are a couple other things I could have done. The first would have been to try a chemical like a paint thinner to see if that would remove it, and another option I had was to use a mechanical remover like a grinder. Fortunately, though, I just had to use some water and some elbow grease, and it took care of it. Also, if you're planning to seal or reseal the concrete and it already has a coating, you'll need to remove that as well with either a chemical that's designed to remove coatings from concrete, or again, use a mechanical method like a grinder. This will help you make sure that the new sealant bonds to the concrete properly. Now that all the cracks are filled in the concrete, the next thing we need to do is to seal the concrete to prevent any more moisture from getting in that concrete, like over the winter, any of the salts from penetrating, all that stuff. But before we do that, since we have some issues with the concrete itself, I want to make sure we make the concrete as strong as possible. We're going to harden the concrete before we seal it, and we're going to do that with a product from GhostShield called Lithi-Tek 4500. Now, if you're not familiar with this product, what it is, it's a lithium-based product that actually seeps into the concrete, and it forms new bonds and it forms new connections within the concrete to make it stronger. It's going to help provide as much strength as possible before we go back and coat it with the sealant. For the Lithi-Tek 4500 densifier, it comes in a concentrate, so you'll need to mix it with water before you apply it. Also, it's important to put the product and the water in the sprayer away from the area that you're working with, since the concrete needs to be dry in order to do its job. I started out mixing this on the area that I was treating and quickly realized that that was a bad idea. The key to applying this to the concrete is to make sure it's saturated, but also that the solution is not pooling up on top of the concrete. If you do see puddles, make sure to eliminate them as soon as possible with a brush or a broom. The biggest issue I had with this was with puddling at the bottom of each of the stairs. Now, before you let anyone walk on the surface, it's important to keep pedestrian traffic off for 24 hours. So I'm going to use these soccer cones as an indicator to stay off of this part of the concrete, especially since it's our front entrance. GhostShield products are best known in the commercial world, but they're growing in popularity for residential use as well. GhostShield has a number of different options, and the best one in our case is the Siloxa-Tek 8500, which will protect the concrete from both water and salt. Now, this product is no slouch. In fact, this stuff is so powerful, it's approved for use by the Department of Transportation for use on highways and bridges. So for our sidewalk, it should do a really good job. Okay, so it's been a little over 24 hours since we've applied the Lithi-Tek 4500, so now we can go ahead and apply the Siloxa-Tek 8500, and this is going to give us that waterproof seal. It's going to make the top of the concrete more of a hydrophobic coating, so the water doesn't penetrate into the concrete, it just runs off of it. For the Siloxa-Tek 8500, it comes in both concentrate and ready-to-use options. Since the area I needed to cover was pretty small, I ended up going with 1 gallon of the ready-to-use formula. The process to applying the 8500 repellent is pretty similar to the 4500 densifier. The biggest difference is that you need to apply a second coat of the 8500 before the first coat dries. I covered small areas of my entrance and only let a few minutes go by before applying the second coat. Again, it's important to brush out any puddles that form on the surface of the concrete. Once the area was fully covered, I marked off the area and let the product dry for another 24 hours. It's important to note that GhostShield says it can take up to 7 days before the concrete develops a hydrophobic barrier that causes the water to bead up. As for whether or not it changed the color and the texture of our concrete, you can see here that the concrete is a little bit darker in color than our driveway, but not really by much. Since you have to let the products cure for 24 hours each, you'll need at least a 48-hour window to complete this project. It's a good idea to check the weather and make sure the temperatures will be within range overnight and during the day, and that there's no rain in the forecast for 2 to 3 days just to be safe. If you're wondering how long this stuff lasts, the Lithi-Tek 4500 only has to be applied once and will last the life of the concrete. The Siloxa-Tek 8500 repellent should last up to 10 years before it has to be reapplied. That's it for this video. If you like this one, be sure to check out this other video here. I'm sure you'll love it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.